Welcome to the Global Medical Device Podcast, where today's brightest minds in the medical device industry go to get their most useful and actionable insider knowledge direct from some of the world's leading medical device experts and companies.
This is a pretty exciting episode of the Global Medical Device Podcast. I got to talk to the Delta development team, where they share a little bit of their story of developing their new product, the Autonomous Portable Refrigeration Unit, or APRU for short. So be sure to check them out, deltadevteam.com, and enjoy this episode of the Global Medical Device Podcast. Hello, and welcome to another exciting episode of the Global Medical Device Podcast. This is your host and founder at Greenlight Guru, John Speer, and kind of excited about this one because I get to talk to one of our Greenlight Guru customers. And today I'm going to be talking with Monti, Leija, and Robert Futch. Both are with Delta Development, or Delta Development Team, rather. So, gentlemen, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. And thanks for bringing us on today.
Absolutely. And also joining me is going to be one of our medical device gurus at Greenlight Guru, Wade Schroeder. Wade's been working pretty closely with the Delta development team. So Wade, I want to make sure you get a chance to say hello to the listeners as well.
Hello, everyone. And yeah, thank you, John, for including me as well. It's been great working with these guys. So I'm excited for this.
All right. So Monti and Robert, we're going to certainly dive into some details and learn a lot more about this real exciting product that you're launching here in a moment. But before we do that, do you mind giving a little bit of background about yourselves and a little bit about the Delta development team?
Yeah, sure. This is Monti. A little bit about myself is I was in the Army for a long time. I retired maybe 4 or 5 years ago and went on this contracting work supporting still the military and tactical medical training. That is my expertise, and then some prolonged field care. And as we went along training, I ran into some guys that now we formed a Delta development team, and they were looking to build a device that would keep, whole blood cold for duration. And they brought me in and asked me some questions on if this was feasible and would the military use it. And with all my experience, I was like, yeah, they would use it. They would love it. Like, they need it right now. So I said, where can they go buy it? And they're like, well, we haven't made it yet. We just have this idea. Awesome. Anyways, that's kind of how we started out. Was they wanted to make a refrigeration device, but they didn't know how it would be applied in the military setting. And that's the piece I brought with it.
Well, I appreciate your service, Monti, and thanks for that background as well.
And he's got about the whole story there. It was Bill and Chris and I that started in 2018, and we saw these, a few tendrils of interest from, SBR projects and proposals going out, but nobody had really made it all the way yet. Nobody had developed this device to the level that the customers were looking for, and so that's what we set out to do back in 2018, and through a mutual friend, we found Monti here, and that completed the team.
And so, Robert, I'm a little bit curious about that. So it's the way you described it, or the way I heard you describe it anyway, it's like you were just constantly looking at all these SBR requests and you kept seeing the theme. I mean, it's probably a little bit more complicated than that, but is that more or less how you decided to dive into this particular product area?
It is. I guess it's a combination of a lot of themes that came together. Bill and I worked at another refrigeration design company. I was there for 7 years. He was there for a little bit longer, and so we had a lot of experience in medical refrigerators and their applications with vaccines, including vaccine distribution with the World Health Organization. And we were already familiar with the whole process of keeping an eye out for more SBRs and proposals from the World Health Organization, and then that's when we started seeing more of this trend from just looking for these vaccine solutions to also looking for blood transport solutions.
Okay, terrific. We might as well just, I guess, dive right in and talk about your new exciting product, and we can chat about the finer points and details regarding that. So I guess tell me about this new device that you're on the cusp of launching, or maybe you already have launched, and now it's just time to continue to spread the word. So what is the name of this new product?
It is the Autonomous Portable Refrigeration Unit, the APRU. So we call it, around here we just call it the APRU to shorten that. But this device, why it's special or it's different is the fact that, one, it's small compared to devices out there. It runs on a battery. That's kind of the second important thing. And with our end user feedback, of course, that's the military, going back and forth with them on how they want this to function and perform, it's special in the sense of, like a regular refrigerator, if you can imagine any refrigerator you have out there, you can't just throw it in the back of a vehicle. You can't just throw it on a helicopter and drive out to the desert or into the Arctic on a military mission and expect it to perform. So what we've done is we've miniaturized this refrigerator so that you could put it on a helicopter, a vehicle, take it anywhere in 115 degree heat, dust, rain, on a boat with water, and it will still function. So really it's designed for military operations, and it can run on a battery, right? Because when the military goes places, they don't always have somewhere to plug things in. So it'll run on a battery for a few days until they can find a place to charge it, or they just plug it in the vehicle if they have vehicles.
Well, that's pretty impressive. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know a ton about refrigeration, except that I think I've heard that, in my home, the refrigerator is the largest consumer of power in my entire house. I don't know if that's accurate. Of course, both you guys can fact check me on that one, but I do think this is accurate. A refrigerator requires a lot of power, and so the fact that this product that you've developed can run for days on battery, that's pretty impressive.
That was one of the major innovations, and I'll say you're right. It's probably one of the biggest power consumers actually in your house. The second biggest is right outside your house. That's the air conditioning, right?
Yeah, both require some sort of refrigeration of some sort. So, give me a sense of how big this product is. I mean, what kind of footprint we're talking? I mean, granted, it's not. I'm gathering, Monty, it's not the same size as the refrigerator in my house because that's impractical for storage and transport. But what kind of size are we talking about?
I would say like a small to medium toolbox that you carry your tools in, that you could physically carry yourself. So one person can carry this. It's only 30 pounds. So one person can move it around. I think it's a 17 by 19 inch, 10 inch.
Yeah, but
complete.
What we started with was we showed a concept of it to the 48th Rescue Squadron here in town, and they said, hey, can you make it as small as an ammo box? And so that was sort of our starting point.
All right. And, I have a pretty good idea for some of the military uses for this, but I guess at the risk of not just making assumptions and letting our listeners know, what all would the military use this sort of device for?
Well, specifically, the military wants to use it for, carrying blood products on missions to closest possible to the injuries, because we know that the sooner our casualties get whole blood when they've been bleeding a lot, the better the outcome. So it makes a huge difference to get, blood products on your casualties as soon as possible. That's one. The other use would be something, they could put their vaccines in there. They could put temperature controlled medications like rocuronium as well. So there's other medical products they could put in there, but the military specifically is looking for a reliable way to keep their whole blood at temperature until needed, and anywhere in the world. This is ready to go to the Arctic.
Wow. And I mean, I can't help but think in current times, we're all still dealing with the global pandemic of COVID-19. as I see the product and as I watch the short video that's on your website, and folks, by the way, you can check out more about the Delta development team and the APRU product. You can go to deltadevteam.com. That's all one word, no spaces, no hyphens. And then if you want to see the APRU unit, just put a /APRU at the end of that. But deltadevteam.com/APRU. But as I look at this, it seems though that there might be some sort of application in our current normal non-military needs of the world today too. Have you thought about those potential applications with this product?
Yes, we're actually, today I just shipped one out to a government agency supporting the Navajo Nation COVID-19 response. So I just shipped one out there for them to put it through its ropes to give us feedback, and they're going to be using it to carry their samples back to the lab for testing.
All right.
And then the other use is with the EMS as well, is really interested in our product because it meets all the AAB guidelines and the FDA regulations, which there is very few, if any, devices that meet all those intents. And so anyways, EMS is also looking at a way, even though they're carrying their whole blood actually now in different types of devices, they don't really meet the regulations like ours will.
That was one thing I wanted to share here is that there's been, it's not just this interest in the military, but there's been some experiments around the country right now, notably in San Antonio and Houston now, where they've just started experimenting with bringing blood to people in need. So a little bit of background is that normally if you get in some kind of serious injury, the ambulance comes out, they pick you up, and they try to stabilize you, and then they hope that you survive on the way back to the hospital, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the new plan is, what if they could just treat you on site? What if they could bring the blood to you? Then you've got a much better chance of surviving. But what's missing from this equation, how do they get the blood to you safely?
Right, for sure. Really, really cool. All right, so gentlemen, when you came up with this idea and you decided to pursue this, what did you know about being a medical device and FDA regulations?
We're still learning. So not much initially.
That's a big one. I'd say our foremost expert here on the regulation was Bill when we started, and Bill had previously been through ISO 9001 regulation for their medical device manufacturing facility, but had never done ISO 13485 or they never did 14971. So this was a totally new world for all of us, where we had to really quickly come up with this whole quality management system and find a way to manage all of this regulation from all of these different standards organizations. I don't think we realized what we got ourselves into when we started.
Well, that's usually the case. I think every time somebody goes through the medical device journey for the first time, is like, oh my goodness. But now that you've done it, or in the process of doing it, I guess I'll bring in Wade on this too. Wade, you've been working pretty closely with Monti and Robert and the rest of the Delta development team. What are some of the obstacles and challenges that you saw as you were working with them as their medical device guru?
They tackled really a lot of it very well. A lot of it was just being aware of certain things. I think a lot of our conversations, even recent ones, have been around what else should I be watching out for, or what's a good way of doing this that we haven't thought about yet, and different things like that. So becoming aware of a lot of it has been a lot of what I've seen. But I'll pass it over to you guys. What recommendations would you guys give to other people that are in a similar situation?
Well, I think we've definitely found the right set of tools to make this happen. In both in terms of finding the right consultants, finding the right team members, finding the right standards management tools, and of course, Wade, you've been one of our major assets getting all of this together. The only way that we could have brought all of this regulation together and actually completed all of this now in such a short amount of time was to have all the right tools at hand.
Folks, I want to remind you I'm talking with Monti Leija. He's the CEO of Delta Development Team. And I'm also talking with Robert Futch. He's the CTO at Delta Development Team. And again, you can learn a whole bunch more about their APRU unit by going to deltadevteam.com/APRU. Talking a little bit about their journey as a medical device company and getting ingrained and indoctrined, so to speak, into all things FDA. And they've been a Greenlight customer now for a bit. And, encourage you all, if you're, whether this is your first time or you've done this many times before, the Greenlight Guru medical device quality management system software platform is designed to help you. And it's designed in a way that helps you be as efficient as you possibly can be while incorporating those must-have criteria from a design and development standpoint and risk and document management, as well as all your post-market needs. So if you're interested in learning more about how we might be able to help you, go to www.greenlight.guru to learn more. Request a demo. We'd be thrilled to have a conversation with you to see if there might be something we can do to help you. All right. So, gentlemen, I guess talk about this journey a little bit more. Like, when you started, obviously it was an idea. Robert, Monti, you talked about having this idea and, finding each other and figuring out a way to design and prototype and it eventually reduce this to practice. But that's just kind of the beginning. You talked about meeting the AABB regulations and FDA regulations, and I assume that somewhere along the way there were different submissions that involved government agencies in some way, shape, or form. So talk a little bit about that experience.
Well, we've got our FDA registration coming up here. And I can tell you one thing is that I feel well prepared for it now. It's been a long learning journey, but because we've had the right tools at hand, I can confidently say that we're well prepared for FDA audits and for the FDA registration of this medical device.
Okay. And what was maybe one of the surprises? I mean, of course, learning about design controls and risk, I'm sure that was one, and what a quality management system is, although one of your colleagues, as you mentioned, had the 9001 experience. So there's a lot of parallels between that and 1345. But as you started to really get into this, what were some of the biggest surprises that you encountered that you weren't anticipating?
Well, I say on my part is talking to the end users and then taking out the device, because we had our ideas and they gave us their ideas, and then we made this prototype, and then we took this prototype out to them and said, all right, you play with this, and they're like, well, we would like it to do this. This is actually these are our real challenges that we face. Like most of these devices, these mobile devices and these other ways they carry whole blood, they work very well in 80-degree Fahrenheit weather. Everybody performs pretty well, except for when you get to 110 Fahrenheit, then it crushes all these devices. So we've really pushed our standard, or we've really pushed for this device to work at 110 Fahrenheit, where most devices are getting crushed with the heat and the sun. And so I guess that's one of the big learning points we took away was, how are these other devices doing this? And they're putting it in their marketing and they're posting it. And then comes to find out they're testing at 80 Fahrenheit, like the optimal temperature to test these things to get their numbers. And so the guys were taking these devices out to Africa and they're like, hey, this thing is not even lasting 4 hours. What's going on? And then we go find out why it is. So what we're trying to do here is, really expand the amount of time they have autonomy to hold their blood in Africa, right? In the places where it's you don't know what kind of power you're going to get. It's unpredictable. It's austere. And that's what we're designing to.
Well, and that's interesting to me because, I mean, I don't want to say it's easy, but it seems like it would be relatively easy to design a product for ideal conditions. And I'm not asking you to speculate why others didn't tackle this challenge before. Maybe it was because the criteria and the requirements were just too stringent. But it seems to me you've fell into sort of a sweet spot, Robert. And maybe this is the whole motivation to begin with, is that you know that the need is for those extreme situations and extreme environmental conditions. Talk a little bit about some of the testing that you had to do. I mean, were there standards that already existed for these? Did you have to come up with your own methodologies?
Yeah, well, I think there's two parts there. It's that we wanted to go the difficult route, the one that nobody's completed yet, of meeting these extreme environment requirements, but also we're going the difficult route of meeting all of the standards, right? There are some standards for mobile medical devices like this, and people just are choosing not to meet them right now because they can get away with devices that don't quite work as well, right? And we want to go the more difficult route of actually having a device that meets the standards, so that our device is the new standard.
Terrific. Wade, I know you've been working with the guys very closely through all of this. You have that electrical engineering background as well. Did you get involved with like some of the IEC testing and providing advice and recommendations to them?
Yeah, we definitely talked about that. Robert and I got into 60601 quite a bit there.
Yeah.
But yeah, it definitely brought me back to my electrical engineering days. So I enjoyed that, and it was a great opportunity to use my experience to help these guys out. But they've just been phenomenal. The amount of work that Robert does between each meeting that we have once a month, it has just been absolutely impressive.
Because I've developed products that, to Monty's description a moment ago, were really designed to work in ideal situations, 80 degrees or what have you. And I've gone through the IEC 60601 battery of testing for a device that doesn't have these extreme conditions. And I know how hard it is to get a product through the testing just for those that, quote, simple circumstances. My goodness, I can't even imagine how complicated this was with the extreme conditions you guys are dealing with.
Well, you're right. We just got done with the 60601 testing on this device, and also IEC 61010. So we did both of those for this device. And of course, what's the number one surprise you always run into is electromagnetics, right?
Yeah, EMC is a beast. The last product I worked on, I think we had and this is nerd talk for a moment, and I may sound like I know more than I'm talking about, but bear with me for a moment. We had the inside of the enclosure had a nickel paint for good conductivity, but then we had the entire electronic package all wrapped and capped on tape. And I don't know how we got everything into that container, but that was one of those scenarios that we found out after the fact, very late in the process. So how did you avoid these gotchas? Because, if you have your form factor already pretty well defined, it's got to be an ammo box. It's not like you can make it the size of a large cooler. How did you deal with all of these different design challenges?
No, I'd say that was one of the major surprises, because we're mostly mechanical engineers here. We've got some electrical and material science as well. So you could tell that most of us were excited. Ooh, let's build the box. Let's design what it's going to look like, right? And then we get to the end and we're like, oh yeah, we have to do EMC testing, right? Of course, that's in our design controls. We were somewhat prepared. We had our electromagnetically protected screen overlay. And we had some idea of what we might need. So we showed up to the first day of electromagnetic testing, and they tell us that we've got some areas of the spectrum to work on, but we came back with a what we called our EMC Ultra unit. It has every possible EMC protection you can think of, probably like your device, right? We wrapped the whole thing in the EMC. Yeah, the EMC tape, and we had the EMC shielded connectors and the paint that you were talking about, and so we did the whole thing, right? And even after all of that, it still didn't pass. And so now, like every time you get into EMC, we're pulling our hair out. What is the issue? Come to find out that it was just a data speed issues, the baud rate on one of our devices on the board. And just changing the speed just a little bit was enough to flatten out the entire spectrum.
Wow,
right?
that's awesome. I mean, so a minor code change in the firmware is way better than than having to go do a rebuild.
It is. So right after that, we went through and then we're like, okay, well, do we still need the EMI paint? Take that out? Nope, it still works. We take out the shielded connectors, and it still works. And we take out, so we got to go down the list and eliminate all of these protections that we had in there beforehand, just in case we needed them, which was a huge benefit for us because it reduces complexity and cost and failure points, where we didn't need all of these other EMC protections because we found the root of the problem.
Yeah, and I love that, Robert, because I think a lot of times companies are just putting tape and suspenders and belts and all kinds of things
Right.
To try to get through that. But I don't think they do the due diligence and actually getting to that root cause. And so, to replay what I heard you just say, you found that root cause, and then you were able to back off until you found the right configuration of everything. And I gotta imagine that there was probably some challenge in this because and Monti didn't say this exactly, but kind of what I heard is you would build some early prototypes, you would field test them, get the feedback. So you have this form factor that the market, that your users are pretty comfortable with. And so now you're sort of fixed to that footprint, so to speak. So did that create any sort of unforeseen challenges as well?
I think, it's difficult. You have to either come up with the box first or come up with your EMC design first, right? It's a chicken or the egg situation. So, but the way that we started was we did have this form factor and something that our users really liked. It fits in their helicopter, it fits in their Humvees, it fits in their ambulances, and then we did leave room for the electromagnetic solutions, not just in the physical form factor, but in the price as well, right? Like we had already talked to our customers about here's what we expect the price to be, and if we had to make some huge changes in the in EMC components, then that would be a bit of a surprise to the customer later if it was a much bigger price, right? In addition to being bigger.
For sure. All right. So let folks know, kind of where you are. I mean, it sounds like some units are out in the field or about to be sent to the field, but where are you in this journey to commercialization?
Really close. But no, we are very, very close. We're looking January, February to have our first production models actually out. So that's how close we are. We got all our prototypes, or we have a prototype that's going up north of us. We have one that's actually in training right now in Wake Forest Special Operations. We're going to send a prototype out to Afghanistan for more end user feedback. I don't know how much we can change on what we have on our prototype right now, but we are getting a lot more data from our end users.
And these are our validation events, right?
Yeah.
So that's a big part of of the whole design control process, validating at the end, and we're doing that we've got a lot of opportunities to do it at this event in Wake Forest and Afghanistan and with the Navajo Nation. So I feel like we've got a lot of opportunity, maybe more than is normal, to be able to validate our product really well.
All right. Any other things about Delta Development Team and the APRU unit that you think it's really important to share with listeners that we haven't covered so far?
See, we've covered pretty much all of it. Just know that this is designed to withstand rigorous military operations, is the whole design behind this. And this effort's been going on for almost over 2 years, right?
Yeah, I think
so. It could be dropped from a C-130 with a chute on it, and if the chute fails to deploy, you're still good.
Yeah, you will. It might crack.
It's pretty rugged.
Yeah, it might crack, but it's still going to run. It's still going to function. It's still going to.
That's cool.
It's still going to keep everything cold until you can get back and tape it up or get it replaced. But it's still going to run if it gets damaged. It's not going to be any issue. So it's very reliable.
I guess that's the ultimate drop test.
It is, yeah. We did some drop testing already, but it was only from a few feet up.
Yeah.
But we are expecting it to be able to survive, pair drops as well.
Yeah. And some of our end users I just talked to last week, they're excited that it is airdroppable. The other thing they're looking at is, as the military moves forward with a lot of this drones, the big drones, the little drones, that they will be able to put this under a drone or on a drone, however they want to do it, and be able to ship this blood out to as far as the drone will go. So that's another big benefit we're looking at, where they can have all these APRUs charged, ready to go. And then when they get the call, they just got to go link it up onto the drone and send it out.
Yeah, that was one thing. I don't know if you guys heard about it was the very first transport of an organ. I think it was in Boston that happened. You guys hear about that?
I did not. Go ahead. Please tell us more.
It was the very first transport of an organ by drone. And I'm pretty sure it was Boston. I have to go find the article again. But they transported it in a cooler just with ice in it, right? Yeah. And so we've got this interesting mix of high tech and low tech right there.
I mean, it seems like if this becomes more common, it seems like you have the ideal product for those types of needs as well.
That's what I'm thinking. In the future, where this becomes more prevalent, where people are flying drones between cities or around cities, and they need a high tech solution to keep their the organs cold in transport. This is exactly it. Here, we're already prepared for the future.
I have a twisted sense of humor sometimes, but I was just thinking Amazon Prime for organs, with drone delivery, right? So maybe that's in our future. Gentlemen, how can I and how can Wade and how can our listeners of the Global Medical Device Podcast, what can we do to help your cause?
Well, we're trying to start making people aware of the technology that's available right now, where previously people weren't thinking about providing blood in the field just because it wasn't technically possible. But now that we do have the technology, there's also the policy change, the procedure change, all of that comes along with the new technology, and the education around people being able to give blood in the field in order to save more lives. So it's a lot more than just the technology that comes along with it. It's we've got to bring out the education and the policy changes to make this possible to save more lives.
Awesome. All right, folks, this is your challenge, is to spread the word about the Delta Development Team's APRU device, just to create awareness, because I can imagine there's a lot of other needs beyond those we've just talked to. And Wade, since I have you on this episode as well, you and I have chatted. All good things, Robert and Monty. So bear with me for a moment. But you've shared, how every time you get off the phone with these guys, how excited you are because of how they take the challenge on. Some of the things they know, some of them they're learning for the first time, but they just, to your point earlier, they do their homework, they do the due diligence, they do the work. What attributes, or how would you describe the things that the Delta Development Team has done really well, and turn that into tips and pointers that others should embrace as part of their journey to bring new medical products to market?
Oh man, there's too many to count. I guess to think of a few, just willingness to take on something new has been really impressive. Every time we talk about design controls and risk, I mentioned something else. Verification, validation comes to mind when I mentioned, how to put a protocol together and, then put it on a report. And Robert's like, oh yeah, that sounds great. We'll be right on that, and it's the willingness to do new things and do what's right. Don't look for the easy way out and do the right thing. I think has really helped these guys be so successful and meet their timelines. One of the things that I think is so impressive about them, it was about a year ago when I started working with these guys, and they had a really aggressive timeline with this. And I was impressed that they've been able to keep that timeline pretty much, to the T, whereas a lot of other products I've worked on in the past and I've heard about in the past, it's really hard to keep that. So I've been really impressed with that.
And Monty and Robert, as you've shared more about the Delta development team story and the challenge that you set out to tackle, it's inspiring to me that you just didn't accept status quo for this particular product space, and that you realized that the challenge that you were facing had never been tackled by anyone before, and it was really aggressive, and I can imagine it was pretty trying and frustrating at times, but you stuck with it, and you built something that's really an awesome product. So you're to be commended for that. It's inspiring, as I said.
Yeah, I'd like to add to that what you guys are saying, and I'll give you the reason why we are pushing so hard is because our end users, specifically the military, special operations, they wanted this device 2 years ago to start making a difference on the battlefield, right? To start saving lives. And every day I came into work, I was pushing these. I'm like, they want it right now. And Rob's like,
yeah,
impossible. They cannot have it right now. And I'm like, right now. And then 3 months later, I'm like, is it ready to go? Let's go. They're ready for it. They want it right now. And he's like, no. So the biggest reason why we really pushed this hard is because we know it's going to make a difference, and they want this product right now, like 2 years ago. But we want it right. And I think, Wade, you said that, we want to make sure this is a good device, very reliable device. Last thing we want to do is send this device on the battlefield and the blood goes out of temperature range and then it's no good. And now, the person that donated the blood, they donated it, that's lost. The casualty that needed it, that's lost. The medic loses confidence in his ability to save his casualties because, something happened with the blood. So, there is the device itself, but then it's the purpose of, we want to be able to save some lives, but we also want to make sure the blood actually is good to go when they get there. So I just want to add that part.
I love it, Monty, and I think
that's why it's rushed.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great way to wrap up this episode too. It's really about improving the quality of life, and that's why I get up every day excited to be part of the Greenlight Guru team, and I know that's a big part of why Wade is here. Is we get to work with companies like the Delta Development Team, who are out on a mission to build products and technologies to save lives, and this is really awesome. So. Help me in thanking Monti, Leija, CEO, and Robert Futch, CTO from the Delta Development Team for joining me on this episode of the Global Medical Device Podcast.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
And folks, as I mentioned, Greenlight Guru is here to help. You've heard from one of our medical device gurus, Wade. Hopefully you know a little bit about the medical device quality management system software platform. It's the only medical device quality management software on the market today. It's been designed exclusively and specifically for the medical device industry by actual medical device professionals like Wade Schroeder and myself, as well as the rest of our other gurus. So be sure you go learn more about how we can help you by visiting www.greenlight.guru. As always, thank you so much for being a loyal listener of the Global Medical Device Podcast, the #1 podcast in the medical device industry. And as I mentioned a few moments ago, you have some homework to help the Delta development team spread the word, get the awareness out about their new APRU product. So share this with your friends and colleagues. And as always, thank you. And until next time, this is your host and founder at Greenlight Guru, and you have John Speer, and you have been listening to the Global Medical Device Podcast.